Goes on, additional funds will be available in the coffers of NBC, and as surely as darkness comes after sunset, so the innovators and dreamers will line up and seek their free money from the taxpayer. There are people who are very gifted, I've learned in 1 year here, at getting money out of the government. These innovators, they'll say, let's build a bullet train to Boise or some other project. I've already heard that kind of thing. And they'll say there'll be debt. And they're very good at the charts and graphs that show this debt is going to prosper us all, this debt that our children are going to have to pay. It won't make us more prosperous, and we'll just be in debt while the profit goes to the builders, and we'll be stuck with that debt for the next 20, 30 years. They make quick cash, and we're stuck with it. It's our duty as elected officials to guard the public trust. Tonight we can do more than that on a permanent basis by limiting NBC as it stands now. And my goal is not to stop innovation or new projects, but to stop debt without a vote of the people. And that's what we're charged with here tonight, I hope. Speaking with the city attorney, this council can limit NBC so it may not issue any future bonds or establish any new urban renewal districts without a vote of the people. So that's what I'm pleading with you all after discussion tonight, is to set that so that we bind NDC now, so there's no future bonding and there's no future districts without a vote of the people.
Thank you. And Mark, do you want to just clarify what actually tonight we could do?
Right. What we talked about is a plan amendment, and urban renewal law provides that anybody can propose a plan amendment, and this plan amendment would have, is I guess its key feature, speaking generally now because we don't have a lot of detail, the prohibition of any bonding or indebtedness being incurred by the urban renewal agency. Now, if that is of interest to the city council, you could instruct that process begin tonight. The process that would be required is that a plan would have to be drafted. It could be drafted, and I would recommend that it be drafted by the NDC itself. But once that plan has been crafted, it would then be presented to the city council, and I want to be clear because this body does wear two different hats. It wears a city council hat and an NDC hat, but it would be presented to the city council. If the city council was in favor of pursuing that, it would have to be then submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They have 60 days to review it for compliance with the comprehensive plan of the city. Following their recommendations, then it comes back before the city council as an ordinance, and then would need to be processed as an ordinance, and there would be a hearing on it at that time. Those are the major steps in adopting a plan or amending a plan. At this point, I think we're still early on in terms of the details, and there are going to be some questions that arise on whether pay-as-you-go is a debt. There is hybrids like what they call a synthetic tax increment financing, where there are bonds issued, but it is repaid only from the revenues generated by the entity that uses those bonds, and whether that's a debt or not a debt is something that we'll have to work through in terms of crafting the plan. So there are going to be some detailed questions to ask in terms of getting there. One thing, Councilman Scott, I want to make sure that we didn't miscommunicate is urban renewal right now is a creature that the legislature has created, and there's a mechanism for bringing it back around. And of course, nothing that you do as city council is permanent. There's always that prerogative in the future to reinitiate these things. So it's going to require some additional work on the details as to whether you can get it all the way to the point where it would require a vote of the people. We've started looking into that because I know that's of interest. But I think this is conceptual in nature at this point, and what would be needed is some direction from the city council as to whether you want to pursue this. Ultimately, the process ends, of course, with council action, but there are some steps we would need to get underway before there's a hearing on an ordinance.
So, just for clarity, I mean, if there's a motion today, the motion would be to ask the NBC to draft document, I guess. I'm trying to figure out that first step.
I think
it's rolling.
Sure, I think it's fair for there to be discussion and an instruction about whether this is something that you're interested in. I don't think there's any, if Bruce is the only one that wants to do this.
Right.
and the process of preparing an amended plan is ultimately going to be futile. I think that's a discussion that you can have tonight. If on the other hand, this is something that appeals to the city council, I think it does make sense to begin the process.
Okay, well, let's just open up discussion with the council. Mayor, Steve?
I'm actually excited to get going on a plan amendment. I mean, what it does is just like Councilmember Scott says, it puts sidebars in place to not allow just anyone to just open it up. It'll, allow the citizens of Nampa to decide whether they want to incur debt. And I'm encouraged to see that we're getting to this point and look forward to some of that discussion.
Thank you. Anybody else here? Paul?
Mr. Hilty, when you use the word plan, in my mind, a plan is part of a district in a temporary situation rather than an overall policy to sunset the urban renewal agency in this case. That's how I've always thought it would be, that we would do a document or an ordinance and we would sunset it with the idea of preventing any future council from bonding or creating a new district. So when you use the word plan, to me that's temporary. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I think so. And we're still looking into exactly what can be done. The concept of sunsetting an agency is frankly not clear in my reading of the Urban Renewal Law or of the Economic Development Act, which provides for the reallocation financing. It is clear that urban renewal agencies are dormant at times. And the question is do you achieve that dormancy by putting the agency to a position where it's certainly continues to operate and collect the reallocation revenue to service existing bonded debt? And as I discussed this with Bruce, that was something that was going to need to happen, and that's, and I don't know all the details of this, but I think for financial reasons, that's probably all that can happen for a while, based on what revenue is anticipated and the amount of the debt service. But you're right, there's a distinction between the agency itself and the plan, and the plan is more temporary. But there is an open question as to whether you could actually sunset the agency as opposed to adopt a plan that would put some of these sideboards in place. So we know we can do that, and whether you can do more than that is to me doubtful and at least not clear at this point.
Well, and Mark,
Paul,
let me just get one clarity now and get back to it, because as we're going through this process, the thing that I think is fairly clear is we can modify the plan as a council as they choose. However, that would not prevent a future council, unless there was changing in the Idaho code, from changing it back. I mean, just like we are. We could say you can't bond anymore, and in 10 years, another council could say, look at all this money, I think we should, and they could change it back. And unless the laws change, that would allow them to do that. Is that how you read that, Mark?
Yeah, I think that that's a fair characterization. There are, in my mind, questions and frankly, some inconsistencies that I'm trying to resolve between what is provided for under the Urban Renewal Act and the reallocation provisions. And there's language in the reallocation area that appears to say that it sunsets or can sunset when the bonded debt is paid, which in the city, for purposes of NDC, is not going to be for many, many years. What happens with other councils between now and then, I don't know.
Right, okay.
Idaho state law says that an urban renewal agency is not, when you bond an urban renewal agency, is not considered a debt. The state law, the Constitution also says that when you indebt the public, that you have to go to a vote of the supermajority, which is 66 and 2/3%. So it was an end run around that situation as far as I'm concerned. They passed that to allow the bonding under the urban renewal agency without going to the vote of the people. I say that to say that my wish in this, I don't know how we're going to get here for sure, but that we do, if at all possible, we adopt an ordinance that puts us in the position that any future councils want to create a new district, that they have to go to the vote of the people to do that. That's my wish and my hope, and I hope that happens. Oh, I lost my train of thought. I think, let's see. I'll figure out.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah. I think part of the frustration for the citizens, you know, part of the changes need to happen at the legislative level.
Right.
Unfortunately, cities are bound by certain issues in that direction, and urban renewal is one of them. And urban renewal can be a good tool, and it can be an abused tool. And I think the safeguards that Mr. Skog is referencing is to avoid the future abuse side of life, or the mechanisms that are available, as Mr. Raymond has proposed. So I support making a plan amendment to communicate. However, future councils, depending on who's sitting in the council seats next year and thereafter, could certainly amend that plan again, which would allow for indebtedness to transpire. How, in that process, if I understand you correctly, it would at least require public notice, and it would require the opportunity for the public to then come and speak to the issue, but it would not prevent this issue that's before us, because the state code current statute, if I understand right, does not prevent future indebtedness, and it does not currently sunset urban renewal. So I just want to,
Well,
I'm reiterating what I'm understanding, I'm hearing
Right.
this evening, and
so really
previous reading.
what we're doing really tonight is symbolic. Because we can't bind future councils, we can't tell future councils what they can do. And that's fine, I like what we're saying, just even if it's from a symbolic nature. Because as I look at our council as it's built now, I suspect there's not much chance they're looking at any more NDC projects.
Correct, Mr. Mayor, but this is more than symbolic. It'll be much more difficult if we bind NDC. There's so many steps of process that must be gone through to make a new district or to change the plan. But this will slow things down
Slow
quite
down,
a bit.
don't disagree. Yep. Pam?
One question I just want to address, I don't have a problem with the bonding and the vote of the people. I have no issue with that. I just want to know about, with regard to the effect on the development reimbursement model. That would not be affected by this. Okay, I see Beth or Robin, can we have them maybe?
Well, because the reimbursement isn't the bonding, we're not bonding for that, that's
Okay,
using assets.
but that's just the clarification I wanted to make on this. Because it is just that bonding for no more projects and vote of the people, correct?
And no new districts.
No new districts.
Okay, further comment?
One other comment, Mr. Mayor, would be, then, is it appropriate, Mr. Hilty, that your firm would do the work, even on behalf of NDC, if so directed by council?
I would defer to you. You've got separate legal counsel for NDC, and I would certainly defer to Bill Nichols to take the lead on that.
Are we obligated?
No.
Good question, Councilman Bills, Mr. Mayor. Since we are city council, I would ask that our city attorney draft the documents and get us ready for a plan.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
is that a form of a motion, sort of?
May I make a motion?
You go right ahead, sounds like a good motion for an attorney.
Fellow council members, I ask that we pass a motion now to instruct the city attorney of the city of Nampa to make a legal plan for the amendment to bind MDC and the city, NDC to no future bonding and no future districts for urban renewal. The wording to be determined by the city attorney and approved by city council at a later date.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second from Mr. Raymond. Is there further discussion?
I have plenty of questions.
That's fine.
Yeah. As acting chairman of the Nampa Development Corporation, I just don't know if it falls back on me to instigate the process or instigate on behalf of the MDC the direction that we need to go in the drafting of that, or is it stay here at the city council level?
Actually, this is the council action, not an NDC action.
But
So,
it's binding, well, I heard discussion about it going back to NDC for further direction and involvement, but is that not the case?
Well, Mr. Chairman of the MDC, I'm not really interested in what NDC has to say. I'm interested as council.
Well, and I like the conversation, I really do, and I would reiterate, or basically stand behind what's been said. I think it's good, and we're moving in the right direction. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something in that rule.
in the past, when we formed the new district, that was a council action. And NDC really wasn't involved in that. That was a council action to form the new district. So what we're sort of reversing that right now, and in my opinion, that's still council action. And when it's done, then the NDC board will carry that out, whatever it is. Mark, could you disagree with that?
No, I think oftentimes, these plans come from an urban renewal board like the NDC, and that's the process. But they go from there to the city council, and as I read the statute, with respect to adoption of plans and amending plans, the process really starts with the city council saying that they want to do it, and then subsequently looking at a draft plan. That is statutorily required. It does say that anybody can propose a plan. The city council is the initial gatekeeper. It goes then through the planning and zoning commission, and then comes back to the city council for action on an ordinance. So I don't know that the statute really carves out a place for the agency,
Right.
although typically they're involved.
All right. Further discussion? Roll call.
Kren,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bills,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right.